Jai Gurudev.
Very good.
We have Pan Brockman with us today. 1992, she did her first course, and 1998, she became teacher. She's from Chicago, USA. She completed her graduation in modern languages, French and Spanish, and she did her master's in Romance languages, again, French and Spanish. She was into advertising for some time in Latino market, and then she was also, before that, she was high school teacher. And we were just discussing, she did this course when she was undergoing stress of becoming a new mom, and it was stressful for her, and that's how she got into art of living. Can you brief how this entry into art of living happened, and what was the experience of your first Sudarshan Kriya, first course?
Well, my my son was always very active, and he never really walked. He ran, so I was pretty exhausted, and I had been working in advertising before, and public relations and market research, and having a child is a beautiful experience, but it wasn't very intellectually challenging. So I was very frustrated with that. I was really exhausted, um, and I yelled a lot. You know, we usually parent the way our parents parented us, because children don't come with a user's manual unless you take the Know Your Child course, which is a lovely course to take. I highly recommend it. Um, but that wasn't available for me. And so I was complaining to my friends, and I had been meditating for about 20 years with transcendental meditation, which is a wonderful meditation. It's like a sister of Sahaj Samadhi. And but that meditation wasn't enough. And so my friends said, well, you know, why don't you take this course? They had taken the first course that had come to Chicago. And I don't know if my course was the second course or not, but it was the first course that Michael Fishman taught. And so I was on that course, and very grateful that he decided to teach us. It was a small course. Um, and what happened during that course after I did my first Kriya? Well, at that time, we used to see a video of Gurudev, and I had fallen in love with him before because my friend had kept showing me a picture of Gurudev for a year, and I was very attached to Maharishi, and I said, no, I already have a guru, I'm fine. But then somehow this one picture I just fell in love with, and so I had to take the course. I took it, and the Kriya was amazing, and I felt that I had become free, and that this was the ticket for me to, you know, to really become free, so permanently. And so I was very excited about it, and I was less tired. And over time, probably over a year or 6 months, I stopped yelling. So that was a relief for my son and for my husband, of course. And yeah, and then I just kept organizing. I guess right after that, and within a month, there was a silence course, and Gurudev came to Lake Delavan. And that was a significant course because that was the first course that he asked teachers, people, if they wanted to be a teacher. And so Philip was there, and Shirley and Dean were there on that course, and Martine was on that course, and so and I was there, and now I'm a silence course teacher. But during the knowledge portion of the course, I couldn't listen because I had to take care of my son, and he was only 2.5, and so he wanted to walk on chairs. And I think that was such a difficult course for me. It was beautiful, the knowledge, and the was so wonderful. But when I arrived at the course, my room was 5 rooms away from Gurudev's room. And in order to, and this wonderful couple, Fred and Betty, who were taking care of our son, they they didn't have children, so they didn't have any toys or anything. So I brought toys and books and video cassettes and puzzles and blocks and everything you can imagine I brought, including videotapes. And I had asked to share a room, and the room, the woman that I was going to stay with, she had a son also, and she didn't allow her son to watch TV. And so as soon as we got into the room, my son started to jump from one bed to the other, one to the other, one to the other. And then her son, who was older, about 6 years older than my son, started to jump from one bed to the other. And so that woman started to cry. She was a very nice lady, but she started to cry. And then she complained, I guess, to to someone, to I don't know, whoever was organizing rooms. And then I got moved to the farthest possible room away from there. And then I cried. and and I said in my mind, Gurudev, you don't want me to be with you. I'm not going to satsang. My first satsang with Gurudev, and I didn't go. And so my son and I watched Beauty and the Beast. And then I guess I got over it and I went the next night. But it was very sweet. I had such deep longing to be with him and meet him. And so I would get these intuitions. And the intuition would be at this particular location at this time. So, you never know if those things are real. And so, but I went anyway, and he was there. And the first night, he was sitting on a bench, and it was a full moon, and the lake was there, and it was dark, and it was just a minute, right? And I was there with my son, and it was just like a timeless moment, like a postcard or something. And then he left, and then another one, be at this place at this time, and it was like at noon, and he was running from one building to another. It was quite cold. It was like 20 degrees Fahrenheit in Chicago, and this is Wisconsin. And so I was able to see him there, and I just to know that I was really very connected with him was so beautiful. And yeah. So
Do you remember what did he say? And
he didn't say
something.
anything.
Oh,
There was nothing. It was just that we were connected. That was it. That was it. So because I had felt so separated, being moved to a different room and really far away. Nice room by myself with my son, but far, far away. But so.
and now you are not only silence course teacher, but you are also happiness course, art excel, yes course teacher, Sahaj Samadhi you teach. Uh, you are also taking up projects like you are a director for Welcome Home Troops. You are
Yeah, that what that is we teach combat veterans, and we teach them
yeah.
a version of the happiness course. We teach them basically the Kriya and some pranayams and very little knowledge, because what they really need is they need.
And you also teach a beautiful package uh, of anti-depression techniques.
Yeah, Gurudev has given us a technique and some different points about how to reduce depression, and it's a beautiful technique. So any happiness teacher can learn that and teach that. Yeah. So
Very nice.
after this,
And
are you a happiness course teacher, Digvijay? Okay, I'll teach
yes,
you. I'll teach you the toolkit so you can teach your students.
yes. And maybe and also you have taken up a project to teach our courses to low income Latinos there,
Yeah.
low income groups there, mainly during this COVID time. So how did you become teacher? When did you decide to be teacher? And mainly, how did you be advanced course teacher? How was that whole
Well,
story?
it was an adventure. Always wanted. I love teaching. As you said, I taught French and Spanish before I went into advertising and public relations, and I really love teaching. I like to see how the mind works, and um, so after I took my happiness course, I wanted to teach others because it helped me so much, and I wanted to help people who didn't have, as fortunate a life as I do. And so as soon as I could, I started on that path. We didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't take very many courses, but uh, but um, but I did. I started my teacher training in 1994, and at that time, teacher training was maybe a week or a few days, and then you would apply that and then come back the next year and do the next phase, and then go from there. So I finally became a full teacher in 1998, and then in the year 2000, or maybe it was in 2099, something like that. I mean, about 1999. I was the only teacher in the Chicago area. And so I would take the Kriya practice around different places so everyone would have a chance to come. And sometimes I would pick people up to take them there. And we were holding it at this one dear friend of mine's home. And I found out sometime later that her mission is to bring people to Art of Living through her connections with other groups. But at that time, I didn't know that. And she likes to organize for other people. She's involved in many, many groups, and she's an excellent organizer. And at that time, my understanding was that she was confusing people by organizing for this guru and that guru and doing Art of Living and doing different, organizing for different healers and so forth. And so, and she was very influential. She's a very charismatic personality and wonderful, very fun person, beautiful person. And so when I went to see Gurudev at Guru Purnima, I met with him, and I said, and there are other people there too, and I said, Gurudev, I have this situation in Chicago. There's this very prominent person who's organizing for other gurus. How do I handle that? And because it was a real botheration for me. And he just looked at me, and I understood that he was going to take care of it. And so I was so relieved. And I just said in my mind, I don't remember if I spoke it or I said it in my mind, oh, you're going to take care of this situation? And he nodded. And I was like, oh, great. And I just relaxed. And I was so happy. And I just felt so content and happy and peaceful. And then he goes, you're going to make an excellent Art Excel teacher. And that was when Art Excel and Yes were the same course. Okay? It wasn't divided into Yes yet. And then he said, and I'm going to make you an advanced course teacher. I just looked at him and was like, what? Where did that come from? And then at that time, there was a feeling in Art of Living in North America that there were not enough female silence course teachers. And so he had said that he was going to make 5 new female silence course teachers. And 4 were known and 1 was a surprise. And I was the surprise because I hadn't gone on many courses, and so people didn't know me. So that's why I was a surprise, I think. But uh, the other teachers had a similar experience. They couldn't speak none of us could speak for about a day. We were like, did something happen to you? They were like, so the other ones were Marcy Jackson from Canada, and Anne Farrow, and Caroline Zeman, and Joan Goodrum. So, and yeah. And the other thing with all of them, their children were either all grown or they didn't have children. So Joan is just fabulous. She's done such great work in South America, helping to establish Art of Living there and mentoring, I don't know, countless teachers there. So she's wonderful. And so are the others. Yeah. So that was really amazing.
You know, any incidents to remember when you felt, oh, Gurudev is there to take care of you and your family?
Yeah, and this is a lovely story because it shows how he's really there for all of us. So this was before I was a teacher, and I had gone at Easter time to for a course in Florida, and I brought our son with, and at that time he was about 4 or 5 years old. And every night after the satsang, this was a silence course, everyone would go to his kutir and sit with him. And I couldn't because I had my son, and I was afraid he would fall asleep and then not be able to wake up. And then I couldn't carry him, and I would have to carry him to the car and then to the hotel. We weren't staying on site, and then, get him into bed. And so, so I resisted that. But then there was one night and I couldn't take it anymore. And I rationalized that that my son Antonio would be very safe if I left him all alone in this room, in this meditation hall, that he sleeps through the night and it's a safe place. And so I did that. I left him there, and Gurudev's kutir was just right across a very, it was like just a little path, just right very next door to the meditation hall. And so it wasn't very far. So I was sitting there, and there were about 150 or 200 people in that room. And I was kind of in the middle of the room, and Gurudev was at one end. And all of a sudden, I sat up really tall, and my eyes got really big. And I realized that my son had woken up, and he was all alone. And I felt so stupid. And I felt so embarrassed and so guilty. And so I screamed in my mind, Gurudev, Gurudev, what should I do now? Antonio's woken up. So Gurudev was, lying, sort of half lying on this little couch, and he was playing with his mala like he likes to do. And he says, "Oh, it's late. It's time for everyone to go home now, go to sleep, because we have the course tomorrow." And I was like, "Take her down, take her down, take her down." And then I had to wait for those 150 or 200 people to find 300 shoes that match, or 400 shoes that match. And so finally, when I get to the door, there is the president of Art of Living. It was Dean Harmison at that time. It was a very tall guy with, he's like 7 feet tall. And he had my son in his arms, and he said, "Oh, look at this little Krishna I found." And I was just so grateful. And then, fast forward 10 years or 6 years, my son is now 10 years old, and he says to me, "Mom, how could you leave me like that?" And I said, "Oh, Antonio, I'm so sorry. I should never have left you like that. Please forgive me. But tell me your experience. So then he said, well, I woke up and I didn't see you, but I saw Gurudev there sitting or sleeping in his chair, as my husband used to always say, oh, are you sleeping again, when I was meditating. So he said, I saw Gurudev sleeping in his chair and I didn't want to disturb him. So I quietly got up and I put on my shoes and I went to look for you, and I didn't slam the door. And so I said, oh, Antonio, Gurudev was with me too. He just went to be with you so you weren't scared. And so then, fast forward 10 more years, Antonio was 19. And he's in college, and Gurudev had come to Chicago for Guru Purnima, and I hadn't seen him yet, but I realized just from being in the aura, being there, that I never had to tell Gurudev that Antonio had woken up. He was there. He knew. He was there beforehand, before I woke up. And that's how Gurudev is for all of us. He's there with us, walking with us. And whenever we have to go through difficult times, he's there to give us support. And yeah. And then later, when I did talk to him, to Gurudev, and at that time, at Guru Purnima time, my husband and I spoke with him, and our son then, was like any other 19-year-old young man, and he didn't want to do his academics. He's a violinist, and a very fine violinist at that, and he just wanted to play violin. He didn't want to do any other studies. So he was going to fail college. He was going to be kicked out. And I didn't know that, but I'm sure Gurudev knew. And so my husband and I said, we really don't know what to do now, how to manage him. And Gurudev said, just bless him. And so I did. And that was so helpful in two ways. Because when we bless someone, we know that the blessing gives them positive vibrations and uplifts them. And I'll tell you how that helped Antonio. And for me, for a parent, we always think we have to do something. And there's really not much you can do with a 19-year-old. They're going to do what they want to. But when we bless, it helps our ego think that we've actually done something. We've done our job, and then we can relax. Our ego can relax. And then we can move on, whatever the next thing to do is. And then drop it with the child. And then they're free to do what they're going to do too. So what happened with Antonio was that he had contacted the administration. He knew he hadn't been doing his work, and he was hoping that they wouldn't notice or something. And I guess he'd been contacted by them, and they said, well, we're not going to ask you back next year. And so he asked them, well, what can I do to fix that? And they said, well, if you write us a letter and you promise to do well, then we'll meet, the administration will meet, and we'll reconsider you. And so he did that. He took responsibility. He wrote the letter, and he did all that, and he didn't tell us about it. And so when I had called the college to pay for the tuition and the room and board for the next semester, they said, well, he's not going to be accepted back. And so I freaked out and I called my son and I said, "What's happening?" And he said, "Don't worry, Mom. I've taken responsibility. I wrote the letter. I did all the things that they want me to do. And I think they'll take me back." And sure enough, they did. So, so this is the grace for us. We know when we bless, we're just giving Gurudev's grace. So it's so beautiful that he gives us that opportunity to share his grace and spread his grace and uplift people more and help them to take responsibility for their lives. Yeah.
You also got a chance to organize a national course for him, no? For Gurudev.
Yes, several times. And so finding a location for a course can be very difficult. And of course, these are challenges that help bring out our best. But anyway, I was with my friend for this one course. I was with my friend Laurel Smith, who was my friend who introduced me through the picture of Gurudev to the art of living. And we were driving in Chicago because we had called all the hotels and we racked our brains about other kinds of locations for a course, and we could not find any place. And so then we were driving on Michigan Avenue, which is the main street in Chicago. It has all the nice stores in it and all the nice hotels. And so we were just looking, and Laurel was driving, my friend Laurel, and I was just looking, and I was so surprised because all of a sudden on the sidewalk, we had prayed to Gurudev to ask to show us a sign about where we might find a course. So all of a sudden, I see along the sidewalk are bubbles, bubbles that you blow. There were just, you never see that going in a big city. When have you last seen bubbles, right? So, so I saw these bubbles and I'm like, what's on the other side? The Westin Hotel. So that was how we found that location. And then there was another course I was organizing, and this one was for the same thing. It was for a talk. He was going around the United States giving different intro talks, and so this was a talk. And I don't know if we were having courses with him after that, but for sure we had to have this talk. So I was thinking of this one nice university because it's in the city and it was easily accessed, very close to different highways. And so so I went there and I was checking it out and talking to the university representative there, and they were showing me a stage. And all of a sudden, I smelled sandalwood incense, and so when I could, I walked back to the control booth where they control the lighting and the audio and the visual and all that. And I said, "Oh, that's really nice incense. Do you smell it? And are you burning that?" And he said, "I smell it too. And I was wondering if you were." He said, "I'd like to know where that's coming from." And so that was Gurudev's sign that was where that place was going to be. So that was great. And yeah. It's beautiful to have him come to Chicago. He hasn't come for a while. Yeah, there's so many stories. There's another story when I organized a course for him. He was coming to the city, and he was coming to the University of Chicago to do a lot of courses, and we couldn't find a place for him to stay. And my dad used to be the head of the Department of Psychiatry and Psychology, and at the University of Chicago. And so I asked him if he would sponsor Gurudev to stay in the Quadrangle Club. You can't just stay there. And so my dad was always very emotionally tied to me. He's passed away, just passed away last year. But he, when I learned TM, he was very much against it and said, oh, it's just self-hypnosis, and he really was, not that supportive of my spiritual path. And so I was afraid to ask him to sponsor Gurudev. But when I did ask him, he said, anything I can do to serve, Pam. And so I told Gurudev that, and he just laughed. So that was very cool. And then there's another story, which is a story. There's like 3 stories. The first one is when Gurudev came to stay, and I had him stay at a devotee's home in the city because he was going to speak in the city, and I didn't want him to drive too far. I live far outside of the city. And we were doing some other events in the city too, so it would be more convenient for him. And so this devotee had bought a honeydew melon. So a honeydew melon